welcome to Out of Service, an artist talk with Amar Gupta. This program is put on by the Asian American Resource Center, and we are located in Austin. We are part of Parks and Recreation Department, Museums and Cultural Programs. My name is Rachel Stewart Chabra, and I am the exhibit specialist at Asian American Resource Center. One of our goals at Asian American Resource Center, well, our main goal is to highlight arts, culture, and stories from the Asian American point of view. And we have a community exhibits program there, and this is how we met tonight's artist, is that he applied to be part of our community exhibits program. Other staff that we have tonight, we have Fabian Duran. He's our public events leader at AARC. So he's going to be running our tech presentation. And we also have Annie Davio, who is with us from one of our other museum and cultural program sites, the Doherty Arts Center. So she's going to be helping managing the chat. Here's what today's program is going to be like. We're going to have an artist talk where Amar is going to show us the slides of his photography, and then an interview, and we're going to finish up with a question and answer. So if you have a question that you would like to ask the artist, if you see something in one of his photos or something that you hear in one of the stories and you would like him to expand on that, or if you just want to know more, please feel free to chat that to Annie. And she'll be sending me questions during the presentation. If we don't get to your question, thanks still for sending your question, but we do have a limited amount of time in the program, so we encourage you to continue to stay in touch. You can email your question to me or contact Amar directly if you want, if your question doesn't get answered during today's program. So, about our artist today, Amar Gupta. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Amar Gupta. I'm a photographer from Beaumont, Texas. My studio is located in Contra Common in Bee Cave, Texas, just outside of Austin. And I've had a lot of fun working on this latest series, and I'm excited to show it to you all.
So we do have this series on exhibit through our website. And if you want to look at the exhibit, if you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibit yet, or if you'd like to look at it in the future, Annie's going to drop the link for you in the chat so that you can take a look there. So please visit, and let's hear from Amar, and let's look at his pictures.
Yeah, so my series is titled Out of Service. And if you want to find out more info about it, here's how you spell my name, and that's a link to my website. So going into it, I thought I would just read the intro because I feel like it's pretty important to get a good feel for what's going on in these photos. On March 17th, the city of Austin closed all bars, venues, and dine-in restaurants in an attempt to slow the spread of the coronavirus. Service industry workers and live performers alike have been stuck in limbo ever since, myself included, and it seemed as if there truly was no end in sight. These industry workers are the lifeblood of small business in Central Texas. At the time, many Texans were unsure if the places they've worked would ever reopen. Several staples of Austin simply could not recover from the economic distress this virus caused. Threadgills, the North Door, and Shady Grove are just a few of the long-standing local favorites to close permanently. Now, as we enter 2021, with an ever-growing number of deaths due to the coronavirus, a new era of uncertainty around the service industry arises. This series examines several service industry employees, as well as how certain local businesses are adjusting to the ever-changing obstacles presented by the virus. The decision to create this work with large format negatives was made in order to achieve a particular transition in tones and richness and quality. These images are presented in an order which I deem most appropriately fit. So moving on to the photographs, I wanted to start out with this photo of Rosalie Rapolo's Pizzeria. I feel like it's a good starting off point because it depicts a fairly active section of downtown Austin, a normally bustling 6th Street, completely boarded up and desolate. It almost looks like as if there's been an apocalypse. So that's why I wanted to start out with this image to kind of give everyone a feel of what these businesses were going through. And then moving on to the portraits, this first one is of my friend Devin. She was bartending at Skylark Lounge at the time. She, along with most other people, were furloughed on March 16th. She was literally driving into work when she got the call that they were going to be closing indefinitely. And since they shut down, she's applied for unemployment, grants, federal aid, things like that. And that was at the very beginning of the pandemic. I spoke to her again last month to catch up on things. And since then, she moved back home to Lumberton for about 3 months, just so she wouldn't have to worry about finances. Then she came back to Austin and lived off unemployment for another 5 or 6 months or so. In October, she got a job at Little Woodrow's and a second job over at a Violet Crown Clubhouse. And she's just been working there. She actually got in a hit and run not too long ago as well, unfortunately. So she's just been having to pay for everything out of pocket to fix her car, which is a huge bummer. But as far as the image goes, I really like that the window light is hitting the side of her face just right. And I feel like she has just this look of uncertainty on her face, which I definitely feel like is a common thread throughout the rest of these portraits.
If I could just comment, there's something about this photo that really feels very visceral, and that I can sort of feel the mood of the person in the photo with the body language, the way that she's the way that her hands are folded in her lap, and sort of the expression on her face as she's looking out the window. The whole feel of her pose feels just very pensive and very worried. And I'm wondering, as you directed this photo, was there anything that you did to try to bring that posture, that feeling out?
As far as setting up the photo went, I mainly just kind of focused on getting the best light that I possibly could get. Because especially when you're shooting with this kind of camera, and this is the camera right here, you need a lot of light, way more than you need when you're shooting digital. So I definitely wanted to place her right in front of that window. That was the best source of light. And then when we got the chair there, she just kind of naturally got into that pose. I definitely just kind of let her do her thing. And I feel like she ended up saying a lot in her expression without really having to say anything.
I see. Thank you.
Moving on. This is an image of the place she was working at called the Skylark Lounge. They're notably known for hosting some of the best jazz musicians in Austin. But as you can see here, the sign, all they're able to convey at the moment is that they're closed indefinitely. And this is something that a lot of businesses had to do. They just kind of had to usually they put up the names of the people who are going to be playing, but instead they're putting up closed signs, indefinitely. This is Haley Raymond. She was also bartending at the Skylark Lounge. I interviewed her last month as well. She started actually a motorcycle repair business called Wolf Cycle. And they started right before the pandemic hit, but they faced a lot of roadblocks in the meantime. All of the factories they normally order parts from were shut down. So they weren't able to get anything for the first 3 months. They couldn't really start off strong as they intended to. And they're currently operating at cost and just waiting for things to kind of normalize. Basically, they're on day-to-day survival right now, is what she was saying, just operating at cost. And I think that this goes for a lot of small businesses, even ones that already had somewhat of a stable standing before the pandemic. And it must be especially hard for business owners who had been working on an idea for some time with the particular launch date only to be set back indefinitely by COVID.
Mm-hmm. There's something about this photo that just feels so quintessentially Austin to me. I think it must be the truck in the background, and then also her jewelry and her tattoo on her wrist, and the just the clothes that she's wearing, and then her whole expression. She seems maybe just a little bit disappointed or worried, but then also very, very resigned and calm about it, and so confidently looking at the viewer.
Yeah, I definitely loved how all of the aesthetics kind of just added up to make this sort of just like this kind of perfectly together image. And I feel like you can really kind of sort of step inside her head a little bit by just sort of looking at the expression on her face and the way that she's holding her hands.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
This next one is Zach Snyder. He was working security at the Skylark Lounge as well. And he is the person who started Wolf Cycle with Haley, the motorcycle repair business. This is them in front of the shop. And I wanted to get the sign right above his head so that the image would convey that. He kind of has a determination in his expression, I feel like, as if he'll make it through regardless of what happens. And I felt like just that idea was important to convey throughout the series, that people are going to get through this one way or the other. This next one is of the Voodoo Room downtown. I really wanted to show again how boarded up the city was. This is from March of last year. And it once again reflects the direct effects that COVID had on downtown bars and restaurants. Just completely desolate, everything's boarded up. And I really wanted to get this crack right in the middle to sort of represent the fragility of these small businesses and how several of them are really just kind of hanging on by a thread.
Mm-hmm. There's something about this photo that I just love, and I think it must be the way that crack sort of leads the viewer into the space of the picture. The crack feels very much like a very dry, desolate sort of desert during a drought. And then the idea that Austin is just such an oasis for folks who might be in the Central Texas area and want to come in from a few hours away, or a little bit of a place that's more remote, and see art, hear live music, get drinks, get refreshments, and really socialize and enjoy themselves. And just with the hospitality business being being shut down at the moment, it's does feel like a ghost town.
Yeah, it very much felt like a ghost town, especially being out there photographing it and just no one around. Definitely a unique moment to be living in. This next portrait is of Roy's nephew. He was barbacking at Backlot. Um, this is one of the portraits that just sort of worked out perfectly because he just so happened to be there on the same day I was photographing Haley and Zach at Wolf Cycle, and he just so happened to be in the service industry, and he also was wearing this outfit that just kind of immediately caught my eye. So I was really happy to be able to include him in the series, and I just love the whole everything that he's wearing, from like his shoes to his belt buckle to his bracelet and the vest, the beard, just everything about that. It kind of had this sort of grungy vibe that I really liked.
Mhm. Mhm.
This portrait is of my friend Josta. She's a bartender at Batch. Um, Batch has been doing a lot of stuff lately. They're located over on the east side, a little east of Hyde Park. Um, they've adjusted their business by offering several different online services. They recently opened up a food truck, and they're releasing an average of 5 new beers a month. Um, some recent ones are Table Wit, Third Anniversary, and WAP, Wet Ass Pale. Um, as for the image, I really like how the lighting is just hitting her profile and her hair is just kind of reflecting the light. I really like that.
Mhm.
This image is of Rudy Durham. He was a barista at Batch. Um, this is one of the mixing rooms at the facility. They do all of their brewing on site. Um, I took interest in the barrel immediately, and then Rudy just kind of hopped right up there, and I just knew that was the perfect image right there. So I set up my camera, and I really like the depth perception from this angle. It's probably the only one. It's probably the only photo in the series I have downward facing up. So it does give you kind of a cool depth of perception.
Yeah, the size of that barrel is very impressive.
Yeah,
It looks like it's as big as an ox or an elephant, a very large animal. And when I look at the way he's sitting on this barrel, it reminds me of the way somebody might be riding a farm animal for their work, except this isn't a farm animal. It's producing beer in a more industrial setting. So I find that a very, very interesting comparison.
it does kind of look like that. I didn't really notice he was sitting like how he would be sitting on a horse or something similar, but yeah, it does look like that. This next image is of Kelsey LeBlanc. She is a bartender at Batch as well. Um, this is another one of their facilities there. They have like the main place where you can buy food and beer, and then a patio, and then 2 buildings over where they brew all the beer. So this is the second facility that's like that's further back. Um, it's one of the last rooms the beer goes into before it's canned. And I really like how the metal railing kind of frames her, and just the way it reflects the fluorescent light. I thought it was a really cool tone.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite images in the series. I think it's interesting seeing this one next to the last one, and that both of these workers are sitting on the equipment that they use to make their craft. But there's something about this image. It makes me feel like I'm almost approaching a queen sitting on a throne. I think it must be the lines of the pipe, the way they sort of all point the viewer in to look at the central figure. Like if you're approaching like a throne room in the court of royalty, all the focus would be on that person, and that she's standing sitting with this posture that's very, very straight and tall and very secure, and the way that she meets your gaze with her head held high. It's just it's a very striking image.
Yeah, she definitely knows how to do everything there, every single step, every process. So she's kind of she's kind of the boss in some ways. So she definitely, you can see that in her expression, like that sort of like that kind of is her kingdom.
Thank you.
This next one is of my friend Javel and his family. He was a bartender at the W. Um, that's his wife Kaz and his daughter Viviana, on their mini ramp in his backyard. Um, so the hotels were all really slow for the first couple months of COVID. He had been there for so long that he was one of the few people that managed to stay on throughout all of it. Um, More recently, the hotels have been picking up like crazy, especially over the winter storms where so many people were out of power and water. So people were going and staying at basically anywhere that had either of those things. And the W got booked like crazy, and he was worked so hard in the past few months. So he actually just quit there recently. He's not leaving the service industry entirely. He's actually going to go and bartend at the Fairmont for a little bit while he's studying to get a tech job. Um, and his wife is a flight attendant who hasn't really been back to work since the pandemic hit because she's been just working as a stay-at-home mom, which is a crazy job as well.
Thank you.
This next image is of Josh Ortiz and his 3 dogs. This one's also kind of another portrait that just sort of worked out. He was there the day I was taking Javel's portrait, and he also just so happened to be in the service industry, so figured why not include you in this series. I set him up on this old car seat that they had out back. I just really liked the whole aesthetic of it, especially with his 3 dogs. And I kind of like how 2 of them are just distracted by the same thing, while the other one is like being a good boy, paying attention.
I find this very interesting. I love that you included some animals in this series, because I often wonder, what the animals that we live with, I have a cat myself, what their experience of what's going on in human world is, or even the wildlife that I see outside my window. I'm wondering, do they know that there's a pandemic going on? Do they know about what's all of the sort of the drama and the tension that goes on in the human world? And I don't think that they do, but they're still so present in our life and in our experience. And I wonder, when I see a picture like this and see the dogs in the picture, do they know that they're in a photograph? And something tells me that I don't think they do, but I love that they're in this photograph, even though it may be going completely above their heads that they're in this photograph.
Yeah, I just felt like I needed to include them because they were like a big part of him and his personality. Uh, just having one dog is kind of a lot of work, and having three, uh, I can't even imagine. That's like already a full-time job right there almost. But I think that all animals were probably really stoked to have their humans be home all the time and spend more time with them. So they probably have no idea what's going on, but they're probably pretty happy to be spending more time with you.
Thank you.
This next one is my friend Mario. He was a bartender at Two Bucks. This is the only double exposure in the series, and one of the reasons I did that was because the lighting was so low in his room, and I didn't have any of my external lights. But I really wanted to get his photo right there and then, so I figured I'd do a long exposure and just double over it. Um, Again, yeah, this camera needs a lot of light. So I was just kind of working in the circumstances that we had. But I actually really like how it came out because I feel that it kind of gives off this sense of unease, which is sort of common throughout everyone else in the series as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've definitely felt and talked to my community about feeling this sense of sort of being unstuck in time, or that like every day is sort of repeating itself, or not without our sort of daily rhythms of leaving the house, seeing people, going to work, coming back home, going to the store, going to um, your sort of, whether it be church or a community group or a yoga class, whatever it is that you do on the regular of your week, not being able to do those things gives people this sense of being disconnected from time, and how just disorienting and scary that can feel. And I feel that this image really captures the psychology of that.
Yeah, definitely. Just the whole feeling of like not being able to get your mind still. I feel like that is definitely reflected in this image with the two layered faces over each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
This next image is of Eric Butler. He was a barback at Vulcan Gas Company. He got furloughed in March along with everyone else, pretty much around the exact same time, 16th, 17th. Shortly after, he started barbacking at Chupacabra, which was one of the first bars to reopen back on 6th. And it was kind of an interesting scenario because they actually got more business than they ever had before, being the only bar that was open. Normally 6th Street has, you know, it's nothing but bars down the line, but for a short period of time, they were the only one. So just kind of an interesting scenario where they actually managed to get more business in a time where almost everyone else had none. He recently left the industry altogether, and in his facial expression, you can kind of see that he was just sort of over it. And I really like that. You can kind of tell that from his expression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This next image is of Callan Muckleroy. She was a server and community commander at Snooze. Over at Snooze, everyone got laid off on March 17th. they were really good to their employees and gave everyone 1 to 2 weeks of pay and free meals until dine-in services reopened. She was offered her job back in June, but she didn't feel comfortable going back because she has a high-risk family member. And she had already kind of been considering other career paths, so she sort of pivoted off into the tech world. She's taking online web development classes, and she believes that the pandemic has been stressful, but it's given her a chance to develop a better relationship with herself and move forward in her life with intention.
There's something so interesting to me about this image, that shape, that's the shadow that she's casting on the cement wall behind her, and that it almost has like more mass in the picture than she does. And I find that so interesting. It's almost like this metaphor for the effect, or the the ripples that we have in the lives of those around us through our work. And that how even if you're not sort of present, there's this intangible way that you're affecting the environment around you that can almost be more have more weight than your physical presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I feel like everyone was carrying around a lot of emotional baggage going into this pandemic, and it sort of just kind of had to deal with it. You were kind of forced to deal with it sort of immediately once COVID first hit. And I think that's definitely something a lot of people had to go through.
Thank you.
And this last slide is just a caption sheet of all of the images.
All right. So thanks so much for showing us your photographs. I've got some questions prepared. We have a really great one from Amy in our audience. Let's see. She asks. Let's see. She wants to know about the photo of the where the crack is in the foreground. So if we want to move back to that one, she wants to know, is there a person laying on the ground in that photo and in front of the Voodoo Lounge? And was there any sort of tension for you to include that person? Or do you know that person? Did you speak to that person? Did you find anything out about their story?
That is a person right there. And I really liked how the crack kind of led right to them. They're sort of centered with the crack. I didn't talk to them. They didn't really move too much that whole time. They're kind of, he was just trying to sleep, I think. So I didn't want to bother him. But I definitely did want to include him in the image because I felt like it just sort of played into this whole idea of how desolate downtown had become, that a place people are normally walking and standing, making plans with their friends is just, it's all boarded up and people are just sleeping right there now. So I definitely felt like it played into the whole idea of everything got shut down so immediately and everything kind of with the flip of a switch just became desolate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. A couple more questions we've got for you. What made you want to focus on the service industry in this series?
I felt like I wanted to focus on the service industry just because it hit so close to home. I was bar backing at Stella San Jack at the time. And then we all got furloughed at exactly the same time, all thinking that we had work the next day. And I just kind of realized we were living in a really unique moment, and I wanted to document it as best as I could.
Right, right. I think that it's so important right now to have community journalism going on. Sometimes I feel like the stories that we hear from mainstream journalism seem to affect our lives in this way that you sort of have to take a step back from and be like, wait a second, what's going on with the people who are immediately in my sphere, my social sphere, and how is it affecting us? And how is it directly affecting our city and the people that we may be acquainted with, maybe we don't know them that well, but they're our neighbors and we're connected with them regardless of whether we know them on a super personal level, because we're in the same situation with them quite a bit. So I think that that's a really important choice that you made. Thank you so much for sharing. Another question that we have is there a reason that you decided to shoot primarily in grayscale for this series?
Yeah, I prefer shooting in grayscale because I feel that it really simplifies the image as a whole. Um, I think that it makes it much easier to focus on someone's expression and body language and sort of get a feeling of who they are instead of being distracted by various colors that may or may not be in the background. So definitely, I would say just the fact that black and white sort of simplifies the image. That's definitely my main reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a really meaningful decision. It's very effective. I can understand what you mean about the if the background might be too busy or too colorful, it might sort of distract from what the message of the image is. So this really it really captures the mood and the emotion of the figure. So I'm wondering, do you have any surprising or remarkable stories that stand out to you when you think about what you learned during the process? You've shared a lot of really great stories so far, so thanks so much for that. But I'm wondering if there's anything in particular that really made you go, wow.
I think the main thing that would make me go wow is probably just realizing how fragile a lot of these local businesses are. Um, I had a list of some of the long-standing staples in Austin: Shady Grove, North Door, Threadgills, and that's only to name a few. All of those places had been around for years. And on the outside, I think that most of us thought they were doing pretty well. Um, but little did we know that they were only 1 or 2 months away from having to shut down forever. So I think that just realizing how much help you're actually doing when you go to a local restaurant instead of going to, I don't know, some kind of big chain restaurant or something, you really are making a difference. And you don't know like how close to calling it quits they really are. So I would say that if everyone could just go and support a local business, uh, do that instead of going to like some big chain, and you'll be doing everyone a huge favor.
Thanks so much for sharing that. We've got a really good question here. Maggie wants to know, are you working on anything now artistically?
I'm still working on this series. Um, I'm still working on expanding this to roughly, I think I want to hit around 30 portraits. So I'm doing that. And I actually just got some color positive film, which I just shot for the first time a few months ago, but I haven't really gotten to mess around with it much since. So I'm excited to start doing that. And I usually never shoot color, so it'll be different for me. But I'm working on, I don't really have anything in particular that I want to shoot the positives on. I'm just going to kind of play around with it. And I also got a wet plate collodion kit, which is like where you shoot on a piece of metal. So I'm working on that as well. I still haven't been able to get a photo to come out yet because it's like really hard to get all the chemicals mixed right. But working on that too. So that's about it for right now.
Wow, that wet plate sounds like a really fascinating and really challenging craft. I think that that's so interesting that there's a lot of interest in these older forms of photography and image making. There's something really so special about being able to hold an analog print or like a daguerreotype, for instance, like in your hand and
Mm-hmm.
just see the special quality that has as an object and digital photography is great. You know, I'm a full citizen of the internet, so I love the quickness that we can share our images over the internet. But there is something that's I think lost a little bit about the time and the intensity and the soul that was sort of captured through those analog processes. So
I
I'm really
agree.
interested.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain feeling that you get whenever you hold, whether it's a negative or a tintype or a daguerreotype. You definitely get like a certain kind of, I don't even really know how to explain it, but there's a certain vibe to it that I feel like you just can't replicate digitally.
Mhm. And that sort of was this capturing of the physical light that was actually just physically touching and reflecting off of that person in that moment. And that's it feels like such a connection, and the way these old photographs kind of connect us to our history and our family members, our ancestors. And that there's something so special about the energy that the light that was actually reflecting off that person's face is now made an impression on this film or on this metal plate.
Yeah, it's definitely timeless in that sense.
So I want to go back to this picture of Javelle, the family sitting on the skate ramp, and I know that you're also very involved with the skate community, and that you have a skate and apparel business called Everything. Can you talk a little bit about if there's some community overlap or just sort of similar interests or energies about the service industry and then also the skate community here in Austin?
Yeah, I would definitely say that a lot of people who skate are in the service industry. Um, so it was not hard at all to find subjects for this series. Um, and it wasn't really like an intentional overlap. It just sort of worked out that way. Um, but I definitely did try to reach more outside of my direct friends group and find people who I could include in this series. And definitely recognizing certain people from the skate park was one of the ways that it kind of made it easier to reach out to certain people. So I would say there definitely is a community overlap with the skate community and the service industry.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I love about this photo is that little girl and just how happy she looks with her parents and standing tall on that skate ramp. And it just really reminds me that a lot of families are finding a lot of closeness with each other, and we have to remember that a lot of families have lost people, and the sort of family situation and the value of family in moments like this.
Yeah, she is awesome. She has a great personality. She's probably been to more countries than I have. She's only like 5. Yeah, they're a really awesome family. And that's also one of the perks of being a flight attendant is getting to fly anywhere.
It's a really sweet photo. So we are wrapping up towards the end of our program now. Thank you for everybody who is here participating. Thank you so much for supporting your arts community in Austin. If you're here from out of town, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so thanks everyone for attending. If you want to find out more about Amar and his work, please visit his website. Also, if you want to find out more about Asian American Resource Center and the City of Austin's museums and cultural programs, please visit our website where you can join our mailing list. We don't mail all that often, but every time we have a wonderful arts, cultural, or community program coming up, we like to keep our mailing list informed about that, so that this is a great way to learn about upcoming programs that we have. And also, super important, complete our visitor survey about this program. These surveys are like money to us. We're able to present arts and cultural programs for free, and these surveys are like money that make this possible and ensure that we're able to continue to do this in the future. So definitely visit that link to complete our survey. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone who attended, and please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for having me.